So the idea is to make it interactive, and instead of doing slide, where I'm going to get back on that in a minute, we would like to share with Stéphane. I was involved since day one with Stéphane, Benoit, Ortwin, and so on, so it was nearly 2 years ago. And the idea was to share, after what he shared about the company, what was the experience to work with SOA people and implementing ready for asset management platform that I'm going to explain for the one that haven't been with us so far in a minute. So the first question was, before moving forward, what was the business challenge, or what were the challenge at that moment for Vandemoortele after what we saw, because it's really brilliant. We saw a factory of the future, we saw a lot of rules, we see employee-centric, we saw a lot of very modern messages and images around the company itself that I'm even myself discover after 2 years. But what were the main business challenge or the issues that you, at that moment, were trying to resolve by going to the market and thinking about a solution that came out of the shelf, like ready for asset management?
Well, the trajectory was already quite long. We have in Izegem, at least, we have sub-plant maintenance since 2014 already. So we're quite developed in that, certainly in comparisons with other sites. But what we saw, we have a shortage of technicians, I think, like every company. The first thing we did in 2018, 2019 was do a reorganization of our maintenance department, where we put in more work preparators so that technicians could focus on solving the issues, but also on not on searching tools and searching parts in the warehouse. Everything was prepared for them, so they could immediately do what they're best at, and that's fixing the problems or maintaining the machines. So that was the first part, is having extra capacity in work preparation to increase the hands-on tools times. But then we saw with the sub-plant maintenance, it's still going to a computer. People noted everything down in books, and at the end of their shift, they went to the computer, put everything in. Also, the part from the warehouse, they noted all the parts, and then they went to the warehouse. So that was already one thing for us, that our inventory accuracy was not high enough. Certainly in certain plants in France, they had inventory inaccuracies of several hundred thousands of euros per year, because people didn't book off the spare parts because they just noted down or they forgot it and so on. Next to that, so increasing hands-on tools times. You saw in production, we are already quite far in digitalization, but we were not in maintenance. They didn't have anything mobile with them, although all our documentation is digital. So they had to go to the workshop, print everything, and then go to the workplace. So for that, we say, yeah, it's not good anymore. Attracting also a younger workforce, because now we have digital natives. If you say you have to work with an archaic system like SAP PM, it's not always very user-friendly, it's not app-based. They also don't want to work on paper anymore, so that was also a big part that we wanted. So we were looking, production is evolving to a digital department, but maintenance is really lacking at that. A part of that was also that maintenance was running behind the schedule because we were always short in personnel. So then the idea arrived, okay, what can we do? And we put some things on paper. It was already in February 21 when I made the first draft of what do we need without looking at solutions. And then finding some base within the company, because I was then maintenance manager of the Izegem plant, but you have 28 other plants that maybe have other ideas that want to do other things. So the first months were finding base, finding support in the maintenance organization, because we are not centrally lead. Everybody does in this plant what they want. So it is developed. After approval of that, we with the help of innovations, we developed a really thorough template, not to forget anything. They have a good sense of what you need in maintenance. They have a good description of all the processes. So together with them, we made a tender document, and then we went to the market. Also there we took quite some time. It was also full in the Corona period, in the pandemic, so we didn't have one-to-one meetings, facial, so everything was online. That's not good for the quality also. So it was about, I think, in December 2021 when we went to the market, and the summer of 2022 we decided to go with SOA people. So so the main challenges were finding base first, but also is the business case, because licenses at SOA people are not very cheap. Everybody knows that. So if you want to find a business case, that's difficult because you increase the hands-on tools time from your technicians, and maybe with every technician you gain, let's say, 30 minutes per shift. But you will never see that saving on a P&L. Cannot put that clearly in the business case. So it was also convincing the higher management of the added value it will bring to the organization on the longer term. But okay, that's our job. Yeah.
So if I summarize, meeting the people, formalized in a template, have a scope, build a business case, convince or involve some exec sponsor at a top management level, and then go to the market and decide.
Yes.
And if you follow this path, what make you decide to work with us? What has been the difference? What was the value you saw in the way we address you and functional coverage, people, organization? Just name it. So
we contacted 9 parties. 8 were interested in answering our questions. And then the first thing we did was a 1-hour Q&A with those people. So we didn't want that all these companies showed us all the tricks they can do with the app. It's just a very dry and boring Q&A session with them. And on the basis of that, we already skipped 5 companies. And why did we do that? We didn't want very expensive ones. They're even more expensive, some than SOA people. They exist. We didn't want. We also had a company that was interested, but they had 3 different apps: one from notifications, one for work orders, one for warehousing. So that's too complex. We skipped them. We also didn't want intermediate parties that are not directly connected to the SAP database, but have an intermediate database. Then you really have to move all your data back and forth again. So that was no option for us. We also didn't want a custom-made solution. Why not? Because it's one-time made and then it stops. We really wanted, and that was an insights during the Q&A, a SaaS solution where we buy a product that has a roadmap that's developed further. And yeah, we get a glimpse of what's being developed in the next year. So that's already for us a very important choice. Then with these 5 drop-offs, we have 3 left, and with these 3, we did demo scenarios. We developed them, and we asked them, show them how you can do that in the app. And then we decided to work with SOA people. So we had 2 others. One functionalities, the other was also quite good, but was located very far, so not in Europe. So for us, that was too big of a risk to go with them.
Excellent, thank you very much. If we look to the journey you are describing, do you today, I know we are an ongoing process, but do you today already realize, measure, capitalize on some savings, improvement? It can be money, it can be process, it can be satisfaction, well-being, whatever. Did you already manage to measure some value? Or?
Not for the moment. We are now starting to implement it in a few sites. So we don't capitalize the gains on this moment. What I can say, because I was clearly involved in all the testing and so on, it is such a simple process if you compare it with the existing SAP PM. For example, a very simple thing is making notifications. Now it's limited to people in the factory that have SAP access, because it's a quite complex process. To describe it, how it goes within Vandemoortele, everybody has a smartphone, so they take a picture. Then they have to send that picture to an email address, download it on their PC, then go to SAP, fill in the notification where they also looked at the equipment number, took a photo of it or wrote it up, go in the tree structure, make a notification. When a notification is made, then they have to adapt the notification and then they can upload their picture. So for somebody that's experienced, it takes 5 minutes. For somebody that's not experienced, it takes 15 minutes. If you look at the app, it's max 1 minute. So that's already a big improvement. So we expect when we are now rolling out, the notifications will fly in to the maintenance department, so it will give some stress in the beginning, but that's normal. It means that things are necessary to repair.
So you didn't measure, because you are in deployment phase. For the people that doesn't know that, the project is still in deployment phase, so we are not totally live everywhere. But what you're describing is that you already measure some facilities, some improvements, some ease of use, and time savings.
It will clearly be a time saver. And also with the checklist functionality, now everything with us is on paper. So when they have to do preventative maintenance, they go to the PC, they print their order, but also all the checklist comes out. So for example, 5 papers, they fill everything in, and then it goes to the garbage, because we say, if there's something wrong to a technician, you have to make a notification. So we spent quite some trees per year just to print all the checklists. And nobody from reliability will have an overview or if the frequency are right, the tasks are right, and so on. With the checklist functionality that's coming on, we can see are the tasks, if you do something every month, and it's 11 times okay, maybe the frequency is too high. And with that functionality, we can really optimize our maintenance based on data and not on feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what Stéphane is saying is that within Vandemoortele, each company is different, of course. We were talking with Geert previously with other customers regarding the roadmap. They have different countries, different site, different level of maturity. And sometimes it's always a give or take. You can decide to open the door and listen to any requirement. You can decide, it's cultural discussion. We have customers that decide to impose a model. This is how you're going to work. This is really project by project. So it was also part of the challenge when we launched the project. We did some workshops in 3 different countries, and you had some differences in terms of expectation or needs, and absolutely want the button here and not down and so on. Another comment that Stéphane made that is not always natural, I like that he said because I didn't ask him to do so, is that they try to stop or reduce as much as they can the print. We have customers that acquire our technology and still ask us to print. The idea, we don't say we don't want you to print, you can always print, but the idea if you go to something totally digital, mobile, integrated, and so on, the idea is to reduce as much as we can the printout. It doesn't really bring value at this stage. Okay. As we know, and we discussed that with different customers earlier today, but also in other meetings, other sessions, one of the main aspects, if you listen to the 3 pillars that Stéphane was explaining, you have machine, you have, correct me if I'm wrong, machine, innovation, people.
Technology.
Technology. Okay. Thank you, Stéphane.
Innovation
and the last one, people.
People.
He was mentioning about working with people. So when you acquire such a technology, he just explained the notification process. You hear them explaining it. One of the key aspects for success, not immediately, but it has to be taken into consideration, is change management. Mm-hmm. How do you manage change management within Vandemoortele now that you are deploying this new interface in your application?
So we now have the app, which is completely tested. Our first idea, and we will still follow that idea, was that we wanted to approach like a Scrum approach to implement software. So our first thought was we're going to implement notifications, test notifications, implement it. Then we're going to test work orders, implement it. Then we're going to test checklist and implement it in that approach. Now we had some issues like around the IT platform and so on. So in the end, we were testing all the different modules we had, notifications, work orders, and checklist. But we still decided to do the deployment partly. So first notifications also for technicians. When they're used to it, then we will do the work orders. When they're used to that, then we will do the checklist. Because now if you throw them the app with all functionality, some people will just block and go back to their PC. So we don't want that to overload them.
Excellent. Because we were talking with some people about change adoption, which is critical. If you decide to put this solution in place, you expect people to use it. Otherwise, why should you do so?
And if I may add a philosophy we also have in Izegem, when we bring a digital tool to the shop floor, it has to work. Because when you introduce something with some bugs in it, people will just leave it. And then the chance of a successful adoption rate later will be very low. So that's why we test it very thoroughly. And for us, quality in this project is far more important than timing. So the initial timing, we skipped it almost, I think, with 1 year and a half, because we first want that everything works very correctly before we go to the shop floor.
And by the way, the statistic of the market is that a end user, will normally 40% of your end user will come once to use the application. If it doesn't work, they don't come twice, which is already nearly half of your community might not use it again unless you force them, train them, get back to them, which is time and energy consuming. Outside change management, did you saw or experience any other challenge to bring this solution in the hand of the end user?
No, well, we're now just starting with it, and by giving the notifications, it's so simple and so intuitively that people really embrace it, because they see now what they have to do it in sub PM. And if they see the app, they immediately find, oh, this is what we need. And that's why we start with notification, because it's so easy and it will add so much value to the biggest part of our organization. If you start only with work orders, in our factory it's only 15, 20 people. With notifications, we reach more than 100 people. Because if you look at notifications, people now have iPads on the floor, but because SAP PM is so complicated, they cannot make notifications. Only shift leaders and team coordinators can do that. We will bring the app also to their iPads, so an operator can make notifications, but can also see what is planned on my production line or on my machine. You can also view it with the app. So that's for us a very big improvement. And what we saw in the roadmap with the progressive web app, when we leave an app and go to a web-based version, is also an improvement for us, because all the tablets and on our production line have Teams applications, which we use to communicate with the people on the shop floor. And you can make a lot of channels in it, and you can directly link to a web page. So that means for our operators, it will be one dashboard where they can do everything. They have their production information, they have communication from the site, from the group, but they can also make requests via this. So it will be a very good improvement for us.
No, it's fantastic, because we just had the session on the roadmap, and it's like you know the roadmap from A to Z, which is very good, Stéphane. Thank you for having me listening this way. What Stéphane is mentioning about the progressive web app, when we do a deployment, as I always used to say, the devil is in the detail. We don't know, we as SOA people upfront, which device you are going to use. We don't know upfront which operating system you are going to use. And if I take Nicolas and Geoffroy from Loast, we know that, for example, in the US, they love Apple and iOS. In Europe, it's okay to work on Android. So these kind of small details can really become an issue if you don't tackle that correctly. So we took the strategy 2 years ago. Now it's totally up and running, but 2 years ago, we took the strategy backstage without doing noise on the market to switch to progressive web app, which allow us to remain totally agnostic in terms of device and operating system. We deploy one application. It's a web-based application. That's the wording, progressive web app. You can give it to subcontractor, people that are from outside, and it allows us to support, maintain one version, and it can run on iOS, Android, Windows, whatever the brand you decide to choose. We have customer that has the bring your own device strategy, so people can come with any given device. It's their own device, so you cannot force them. So this is also something we will address in the near future. And last question, Stéphane, and thank you very much for playing the game. This is a tricky question because normally in front of everyone, I should not ask it, but as we are here in a very transparent way, what will you, if you have a magic tricks and what will you change, improve in the application? If you have the keys of the product, we have Kwan that is sitting backstage as the product owner. He's not listening.
Still not?
No, still not listening. It's okay, good. So what will you, now you experience all the journey, the project deployment, with all the feedbacks you are sharing, thank you for that. What will you change, improve, adapt, now that you saw the roadmap also for the next coming months?
It will be too arrogant to say the licenses fee. No. So our goal.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Our goal was very clearly going mobile. So that's why we focus a lot on just the mobile application and the checklist. Our focus is far less on the scheduling tool because also in our current SAP setup, it will be very difficult to link it together with the production plan, with the time registration of technicians and so on. But I think you have some other things that come by with this. You have your cockpit where you can see your notifications, which is far easily accessible in comparison with SAP PM. So I think if you would decouple these two from each other, that work preparations have the cockpit without the scheduling tool, it would also be an improvement. I think in the user friendliness of the application, I think it's very good. And I think with the improvements coming, that you can choose yourself which fields you want to show and all, that you don't need programmers for that. I think it's a very good improvement coming. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Any question, remarks on what has been shared?
Did you have to make changes to the standard SAP production flow?
No, in SAP ourselves, we just had to make, I think, one user status extra. That was the only thing. But we had our SAP set up, and we said very clearly to SOE people, you have to follow our SAP setup, how we implemented it in all the sites. We will not change that. For example, we use a lot of user statuses on operation level. You don't see it always in other plants. We use it, so you have to cope with that. So we didn't change our SAP setup, no.
It's a very good question because with the system we have, the way we build it, as it's in SAP, we consume the standard and the specific. So normally, we don't have any customer where we spend time on the SAP itself. We immediately activate the data from ready for asset management. Thank you very much, Stéphane.